In 1974, the American company General Electric applied to build the Bataan nuclear power station. But Tassini urged his pal Marcos to accept the highest bidder, the Westinghouse company. Moreover, the deal would be underwritten by the American government through the Export-Import Bank and a clutch of private American banks. Everybody would make a buck, except the Filipino people. By 1977, President Carter had stopped the building of nuclear power plants because of their inefficiency and faulty design. But he did nothing to stop the same plants being built in third world countries like the Philippines. Moreover, the State Department, which had to approve Westinghouse's export license, knew the Bataan power station was to be built in an earthquake zone, but still it was encouraged to go ahead.
To make the story even more dubious, the U.S. government enters in.
Ample evidence of bribery.
William Casey, later the director of the CIA, then head of the Export-Import Bank, an agency which helps U.S. businesses overseas by providing loans and loan guarantees. Casey goes to Manila. Casey comes back, recommends that the U.S. government, through this Export-Import Bank, give an initial loan, and they start building. Westinghouse at this time does the usual thing. You have delays, you have problems. The price goes up and up and up. First to 1.1 billion, finally to 2.2 billion. Some estimate that the final cost to the Philippines will be $2.6 billion. So you have a $2.6 billion fiasco that will never produce 1 watt of electricity, which now the Filipino people have to repay. That opens the gate for all these other banks to come in and give loans.
When Marcos was overthrown in 1986, President Aquino declared the Bataan power station unsafe, and it was closed forever. At the same time, her government began legal action in the United States against Westinghouse. Last year, the American judge found ample evidence of bribery. On the day before the case was due to be heard in March, it was settled out of court. Westinghouse agreed to pay the Philippines $100 million. But remarkably, the Aquino government agreed to give Westinghouse $400 million just to make the power station work, regardless of its position in an earthquake zone. And this $400 million will be borrowed from the same American Export-Import Bank and will have to be repaid by the Filipino people, most of whom live in poverty.
Why should the Filipino people now, having got rid of the dictator Marcos, repay money that he got from the World Bank, much of it which he and his cronies pocketed?
Well, I don't know how much of the World Bank money he pocketed. There are a lot of procedures.
Well, we know he pocketed quite a bit, you would agree?
Of the World Bank money, I would disagree. There are a lot of procedures in place to ensure that the disbursements of World Bank monies are for projects which are well monitored and are against purchases which are again well monitored.
The World Bank and IMF that pride themselves in being institutions that are helping deal with the debt crisis were being used by a third world president actually for his own internal economic gain, in that it was allowing him to continue to service commercial bank debts without getting into trouble, continue to get new loans in, from which again he would take whatever, 1% or 1.5%, and continue to enrich himself.
Finally, may I turn to that other slavery, our $26 billion foreign debt. I have said that we shall honor it. Yet half our export earnings, $2 billion out of $4 billion, which is all we can earn in the restrictive markets of the world, must go to pay just the interest on a debt whose benefit the Filipino people never received.
When Cory Aquino was swept to power, she described the Philippines as a land of broken promises. Her promise to the Filipino people was that they would be the beneficiaries of their civilized uprising against Marcos. I will vigorously renegotiate, she said, the terms of our foreign debt. But in the end, she gave priority to paying off the banks. Poverty now stands at 70% of the population, a rise of more than 10% since she came to power. A Big Mac is not for the poor. As the debt is paid back at a rate of more than $6 million a day, the rich, like the elites in all debtor nations, increasingly rely on private armies to protect their shopping malls, their homes and their interests. According to Amnesty International, political killings carried out by the government and government-backed forces in violation of the law have become the most serious human rights problem in the Philippines. This is Eddie. He's 32, a bright, responsible, decent man faced with a clear choice. He can sift through rubbish, picking out bits of glass, tin and plastic in order to make a living, or he can let his family starve. They live in a place known to all Manila as Smoky Mountain. The stench and the ashen rain are constant here. There are two sounds that dominate. The sound of dump trucks and of children coughing as they descend on the newly delivered rubbish like birds waiting for the clod to turn. More than 20,000 people live on and in the rubbish of Smoky Mountain. They are the face workers of modern poverty, and their lives are a metaphor for the condition of peoples in many countries whose impoverishment in the 1990s accelerates as the debt of poor nations grows and grows. The way these people have to live has much to do with decisions taken far from the poverty and the stench. They are the products of structural adjustment, a modern jargon term with old-fashioned meaning. It means an economy reshaped and controlled by outside forces so that foreign debt can be paid back and foreign investment and export production made attractive by cheap labor. So cheap that these people are forced to scavenge here. It's an economy whose unprofitable public services, like schools, hospitals, and clean running water, are expendable. How long have you lived here, Eddie?
Almost 13 years.
So you thought by coming to Manila you'd get work. That's what everybody in the countryside thought at that time. So you had to come to Smoky Mountain.
Yeah, so I decided to come to Smoky Mountain because if I did not work every day, I did not eat.
This is Eddie's structurally adjusted neighborhood, which periodically gets bulldozed to make room for more rubbish. In order to eat and feed their family, Eddie and his wife Teresita must work at least 12 hours a day to make just over £2. This pays for 2 basic meals, mostly rice, for them and their 4 children. When Teresita was about to have baby Grace, Eddie paid for a midwife by selling wood that was to be the roof over their second room. Every child born on Smoky Mountain stands a good chance of not living to the age of 5.
Almost 30% of the children here. The problem is the diarrhea and pneumonia and malnutrition.
30% pneumonia and diarrhea and malnutrition. This is not surprising, as they live without clean water and sanitation, nor can they afford doctors and clinics, as social services are cut back and privatized.